There are a plethora of diseases out there in the world that are extremely rare and sometimes hard to diagnose. Some diseases, such as chronic fatigue syndrome, can hit a person and often doctors don't really know how to treat it. Sufferers can hardly move for days on end, and there's not much the medical community can do to help them. Then there's the mysterious Morgellons disease, described as people having small fibers or tiny particles emerging from their skin sores. It feels like things crawling on them. It can be ruinous, yet it remains pretty much a controversial mystery. And you certainly don't want the condition known as pica, which might drive a person to eat rocks, sand, glass, and in one extreme case, bicycles, TVs, shopping carts, and an entire Cessna 150 airplane. Today we have a case for you which astounded people this year, the case of a Filipino man whose head swelled so much some media reported it to be 3 times bigger than it was when he was in good health. There are numerous photographs of this man out there, as well as sad-looking video of him playing guitar and singing. What the viewer sees is something that could be said to be very strange and sad, so much so a person might wonder if these images had been doctored and it's all a big hoax. If it is a hoax, that hasn't stopped news media from all over the world publishing the photos and telling the story. The man we're talking about is called Romulo Pilapil. He was 56 when the news reports were circulating around the internet in July this year. You can see before and after photos of this carpenter from the Philippines, and the after photo is nothing short of extraordinary. His head is indeed incredibly swollen, as if it's been pumped up. His lips look like they've been inflated, his eyes swollen beyond recognition. He also has quite a slight frame which accentuates his oversized head. Here's the story of what happened to him according to those reports. Around 3 years ago, he developed sinus problems as well as itchy eyes, something anyone who's had allergic rhinitis, aka hay fever, has to put up with at various times in their life. But Romulo's condition got worse. He was, of course, just diagnosed at the beginning with having sinus problems, but then things started to swell. It became unbearable for him, and in time his eyes swelled so much that he couldn't see. Because of that, he couldn't work, and financial troubles ensued. At the time, doctors on the island of Leyte, where he lives, said they just didn't know what was happening to him and he needed to go to Manila to get treatment. That was hard because he had no job and not enough funds to travel to the capital and receive treatment. In photos taken in what is presumably his home, an edifice built from wood and corrugated iron, it's clear that he is quite poor. It's reported that his kids had to drop out of school to work and his wife had to take a job as a street sweeper. He was put on a course of medicine to treat the swelling, but nothing seemed to work. You can only imagine how alarmed this man would be looking in the mirror and seeing his head expand like that. His nephew, John Santos, told the media his eyes looked irritated that day and his nose was red. He had colds, so everybody thought it was sinusitis. Then his face started to swell. John said no local doctors knew what to do with his uncle and they just said he needed to see a specialist. That wasn't possible, and Romulo lived with his swollen head, unable to work and in no doubt some amount of pain. The Western media stopped there. End of story. This case was so bad some people have commented that it wasn't real, that it was some kind of hoax. For that reason, we tried to find the source of the information. We don't want to be telling you stories that aren't true. We tried to find Romulo's story in the media of the Philippines, and it seems it wasn't reported in the oldest English-language newspaper, the Manila Times. We also searched to find it in the Philippine Star newspaper and the Manila Bulletin, and a Google search didn't provide us with a story. Is this a case of one tabloid writing a story and every other tabloid repeating the same story? What's sometimes called journalism, or possibly a case of fake news journalism? From what we can see, the stories from each news media organization or blog or website posting viral content uses the same photos, same quotes, and tell the same story. The news also appears on various video news media, but again, the source doesn't look like it did much investigating and instead repeated the story everyone else has told. In the comments section of various media and on YouTube clips, people do seem to believe the story, but we want to know for sure that this is not some kind of deep fake. Some people have made that accusation. Surely, scores of well-known media wouldn't publish a deep fake hoax as a real story and would have done their due diligence. From what we can see, some sources tell the story and then say something like, according to the Daily Mail, or according to the Daily Mirror, and that could be in numerous languages from different countries. We even tried to find a Romulo Pilapil on Facebook, and while we found a lot of people with that name, we couldn't find an account with a profile photo that matched our man, before or after. And as he can't see and is oldish and poor, it's very unlikely he'd have an account. We doubt social media is high on his list of concerns. Finally, we had a breakthrough. We found the Facebook page of a man named John Kevin de los Santos, the name of the nephew. He posted a story of Romulo and asked for help, and then left phone numbers for people to call. Of the 28,000 plus people that commented on one post, many of them left the hashtag KMJS, which stands for Kapuso Mo Jessica Soho, and is a television news magazine show in the Philippines. Some people even asked Senator and renowned boxer Manny Pacquiao to come to Romulo's aid. We went through John's photos, which were public, and indeed found more photos of Romulo from the past. In some of these, his head was bandaged, and it's a sad sight to see. We also found more video footage of Romulo sitting in a chair while what looks like his family standing around him. A woman seems to be praying for him, and while his eyes are swollen shut, tears seem to be falling down his face. At the end, everyone sings happy birthday to him. As we said, we just wanted to check this before we told you the story was real. We can say that it looks real, so now we need to try and understand what happened to Romulo. It's certainly a horrific case of swelling that must be very, very rare, and we hope that the man can get the money to find a specialist who can help him. Thousands of people have seen the video, and at least in the Philippines, many people wished him good luck and blessed him. One such comment, translated into English, read, "Happy birthday. Get well soon, Papa. God knows everything for the good, and you will get well soon. Just hold on. Don't give up." In fact, the majority of comments tell the sick man that God will look after him. And while we don't want to dispute this, we think what he also needs is some money to travel and see a medical professional who can reverse that extreme swelling. What Romulo needs is to see clearly again, to have his singing mouth back like it was in the past, to be able to blow out his birthday candles like he could do before he was visited upon by this unusual condition. But what could he have? What happened to him? Well, we've all heard of severe allergic reactions to certain foods, say peanuts or shellfish or tree nuts. And we know that these reactions could cause swelling of the face. This can be deadly as the swelling can make it hard to breathe. But with this kind of reaction, called anaphylaxis, it tends to go down quite quickly. As we know, Romulo has been this way for a long time, and doctors would know very well if it was anaphylaxis. We found something called angioedema, which can also cause swelling of the lips and eyes, but in most cases this goes down too. This could be an allergic reaction to food or prescribed medicine, but it could also be hereditary. Britain's NHS tells us that hereditary angioedema can't be cured, but with medication it can be treated quickly. There can be severe cases, and it could have simply happened because an insect bit him. It might also have been caused by lupus or leukemia, but again, it should be treatable even if severe. Because Romulo has seen doctors and taken meds and his condition is still said to be mysterious, perhaps it's not that either. On the Facebook page of the nephew, numerous times it said that doctors just can't come up with a diagnosis. We did find one story in The Atlantic, though, about a girl whose face swelled and she had rashes and it wouldn't go away. She was quoted as saying, "I awoke one morning with a thick swollen tongue, half-shut eyes, and red welts the size of $50 across my body." She went to see many doctors for months and they couldn't make it disappear. She said she had angioedema, but hers just hung around and made her life hell. She wrote, "Every morning there are new hives, different things swollen, perpetually tumescent. I've become a living blow-up doll." She says she's just learned to live with it, and while this must be very hard, it's likely her case of swelling isn't anything as extreme as Romulo's. We'd also like to think that Romulo has been given antihistamines and the immune-suppressing steroid prednisone, which is given to decrease inflammation in patients. We also found one report from the National Institutes of Health that said one 27-year-old American man suffering from angioedema was treated with steroids and antihistamines. He improved, but the moment he stopped taking them, it came back. That report tells us, consequently, we decided to try a course of inhaled cannabis as modulators of immune cell functions. The use of inhaled cannabis resulted in a complete response, and he has been free of symptoms for 2 years. Is there a chance that if Romulo had an extreme case of angioedema, that this could work for him? We looked at other conditions which could cause the face to swell, such as Cushing's syndrome, but from the example photographs we saw, people's faces weren't anywhere near as swollen as Romulo's. In fact, it's hard to find a case of facial swelling as bad as his. We did find one instance in which a man's face was terribly swollen, much like Romulo's face. This was in 2015, when a Chinese factory worker was rushed to a hospital after his face swelled to enormous proportions. Central European news reported that several hospitals turned the man away because they didn't know how to treat him. But one doctor diagnosed him as having something called neonatal scleroderma. This is an exceptionally rare skin disease that can be fatal. The doctor who treated the Chinese patient said the culprit was likely a mosquito, adding that if the critter gets a person in the lymph node, it could cause this kind of intense swelling. According to some sources, this condition might stick around. Still, looking at photographs, we can't find a case that matches Romulo's, and apparently the Chinese man was fine soon after seeing a doctor. Unfortunately, we at the Infographics Show are not medical experts, and so can't say what happened to Romulo, but we hope his condition changes. We've tried to contact the nephew to check on his uncle's condition, but so far haven't had a reply. We'll let you know if he gets in touch with us. Until then, could any of you offer an opinion? We saw how well crowdsourcing worked for the New York Times writer and doctor who turned her stories of undiagnosable diseases into a Netflix show. Maybe you can help out. If so, tell us in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video, The Only Man to Survive 2 Nuclear Bombs. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.